Hey guys, Mike for Sim Racing 604 and welcome back to Assetto Corsa. You are looking at the 7 vehicles on offer currently as part of the GT Pack from Race Sim Studio. These are of course based on modern GT3s. So I have long said that this is the best GT3 experience you can have in sim racing. I love these cars so much. When Race Sim Studio decided to take their mod creations this direction, I was not a fan, but they won me over with the sheer quality of the mods. I don't think you can do any better than this if you're a fan of modern GT racing, especially GT3 racing in Assetto Corsa. It's just absolutely mind-blowing. So they have released an update for these cars. 2 of the cars have been overhauled, but 5 of the cars have just basically been updated. There's a balance of performance focus in this update, trying to get the cars to compete nicer with each other. Is that setting the stage for further releases? Who knows, but for now, the 7 cars have been updated. And again, 2 of them are fairly significant updates, and 5 of them are just kind of in keeping with making it a pack as opposed to 7 disparate cars. So I'm going to test drive these at various tracks and let you know how I'm getting on with the 7 cars that are part of this GT Pack from Race Sim Studio. Let's go ahead and get to the track now. Alright, so here we are on board the Lanzo V10, the original Lamborghini. We have the Evo2 as well, which I'll get to later in the video, but wanted to kick it off with some of the older cars in the group. So this Lanzo V10 is one of 2 cars which I would say received sort of the most attention in this GTM update from Race Sim Studio. Reason being is the Lanzo is quite old, and this is actually quite significant in my appreciation of the GTM cars, because originally we had the Bayer or the Bayro or whatever it was called on release, and I, like many of you, wondered why Race Sim Studio was going with GT3. There's already so many GT3 cars in this title. Why would a great mod studio waste their time with GT3? And then they came out with the Lanzo is quite a while later. I'm gonna say it was like a year and a half or 2 years later. There was some sort of event through 2020 and 2021 that YouTube doesn't like you to talk about that happened and kind of scrambled the world, including RSS's plans for these GTM cars. But when they did return, they gave us this Lanzo V10, and my opinion instantly shifted. It went from, what is Race Sim Studio doing, to, please give me more Race Sim Studio. And that's still where I lie with this Lanzo V10. Is the Evo2 better? Yes, I very much appreciate that car, and like I said, we'll get into that later. But yeah, this Lanzo V10 unto itself is phenomenal. It's a truly great GT3 car. And by the way, I don't know if anyone from Race Sim Studio watches my videos, but I had the idea when I was thinking about making this video and thinking about the GTM pack in general. I believe they should offer this Lanzo V10 for free. And I know that's easy for me to say because it's not going to cost me anything, but I believe this would be a great starter car. I think if more people who play Assetto Corsa or just like GT3 cars in general in sim racing or in racing games were able to try this car, knowing that it fits into a pack and there's 6 other cars you could buy in an associated pack with this car, I think it would just be a tremendous driver of sales for Race Sim Studio. I think all it would take is a person trying this car one time to understand the greatness that Race Sim Studio has achieved. And I think if it were free, it would be, you know, the greatest free mod. Well, it would be among the great free mods ever in Assetto Corsa. And like I say, I think it would just drive sales of everything. I think people would want to fill out their field of GTM cars and, you know, buy the Evo2, because I think everybody I've spoken to who's driven this and then driven the Evo2 has said the Evo2 is better. So again, I just think it would be a tremendous driver of sales. So Race Sim Studio, keep doing what you do, but I think this would be a perfect free introduction to your great cars for people who have yet to try them. All right, making our way around Imola here. This is skinned for the 2023 Formula One. Is it Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix? I can't remember the full name of it. But anyway, Imola here, skinned for Formula One. and just driving this Lanzo V10. So again, this has received a lot of updates, and it feels as good as ever. The sounds don't sound that different. The bass, sorry, the BASE bass engine note sounds very similar to the outgoing. I don't remember the that buzzer when the paddle shift system is charging. I don't remember this being that prominent in the outgoing V10. Maybe it's just me, but it does seem to have sort of its fringe characteristics more in common with the Evo2. But again, that could be me. It's very difficult to compare sounds from memory, but that's where we are. But this is a beautiful, beautiful car that just drives excellent. And you would think that it kind of would get outshined by the Evo2 and you wouldn't want to drive it. No, this is still an excellent car. And you compare this with the Kunos version of the previous. So this is the Evo. This is based on the Evo version. Evo2, of course, is based on the Evo2 version. And then the version we have of the Huracan GT3 by Kunos is based on the standard version. And you go back to the Kunos version and it's like, I am missing everything. I love Kunos, but they just did not take their GT3s to this level. RaceSim Studio, I would say, comfortably outperformed the official Lamborghini car for Assetto Corsa with this Lanzo V10 and the V10 Evo2. So I don't want to spend too much time with each car, but this one, like, as good or better than I remember. And again, this was kind of my introduction to the GTMs and why it was a worthwhile project for RaceSim Studio, and still drives fantastic. So if you're a fan of this car, no issues with recommending this from me. I think it's phenomenal. All right, let's go on to the next GTM car. All right, so here we are at the Nürburgring on board the BMW. Whoops, just escaped the pits in time to avoid the Lanzo. Lanzo apparently was not done with me after Imola. So this is the second of two cars, along with the Lanzo V10 that I just got done driving, that has received significant updates. So this was the first GTM car, or this was the first GTM car that we had released, and this dates back several years, if you can believe it. Yes, where did the time go? And some pretty impressive functions on this car. However, it was kind of starting to show its age in terms of the GTM pack, so RaceSim Studio took it upon themselves to update this, bring it up to the current CSP standards. I mean, it's impossible to stay all the way up with current CSP standards because that is constantly being updated. However, some fairly noticeable and sizable and significant updates to CSP in the preceding years has left the car kind of feeling a little bit out of sorts with the rest of the pack. So RaceSim Studio again took the initiative and brought the car up to modern standards, which is a very impressive thing to do, because considering this is not going to be, I don't think, the most popular car in the pack. We have the M4 GT3 currently competing, this M6, a faded memory. Yeah, so you can still drive it in ACC, of course, and you know, it appears in various games at various times. Oops, this is not the GP layout at all. We are going with the Formula 1 layout here, that's alright. But yeah, I don't think this will be a very popular car, but just the same, RaceSim Studio did want to bring their car up to modern standards. And I like that. I think that's a good move by them. Don't just make a car and then when it gets superseded by other things in the real world, move on to different projects. No, they've done a good job here of keeping their projects up to date. So what do I think about this? Well, it's still not going to be my favorite of the GTM pack. I think probably there's somewhat of a mental block for me with this car. Because again, I think I was just disappointed in RaceSim Studio that they chose to go with the GTM cars or GT3 cars. But time has proven me wrong, because the cars are fantastic. But I think this Bayer will always, or Bayro, whatever, will always be the one that I'm like, what are they thinking? So maybe it's just me, maybe it's just a mental block on my part. But yeah, the car just doesn't feel to me quite as exciting as the other cars in this pack. It's stable. If you, for some reason, have trouble, and I don't think you will, but if you, for some reason, have trouble driving these GTM cars, I would say start with the Bayer. It's very stable, good in a straight line, no concerns whatsoever with grip, mid-corner, late corner, anything like that. Turn-in is good. So this is the sort of overall most stable car, and if you're like me, that's probably not what you want. I love how lively the Lanzo V10 that I just drove, for example, feels underneath me, and yeah, I don't know, I just don't get that same level of thrill out of this Bayer. But again, not to say it's a bad car. I think it's really, really good for what it is. It's just not necessarily the car for me. Whoa, nor is this corner. But I did manage to get things stopped. You see that updated tire model? You see what that's doing in the top right-hand corner there. So just coming to the end of the second lap, and the tire temps and pressures have been stable for some time. So I do believe they are stabilizing a little bit earlier. This is the default setup. As you can see, settling into a nice 26 in 3 of the 4 tires, and the 4th is not far off as well. So no concerns whatsoever with the heating model. Perhaps a little more refined than the outgoing version. And yeah, this is definitely the best version of this BMW that I have driven. Just again, I think my style of car, and again, those mental hang-ups that I have from the past still linger and make me not able to love this car fully. But yeah, we'll finish this lap and then we'll go on. We've still got 5 more cars to cover. Wow, this is going to be a long one. I'm just sort of planning out my day here on this Saturday morning and thinking I've still got so much recording to do. But yeah, tires looking good overall. And the sounds were revised on this car as well. Maybe I'll just give a quick moment here to let you appreciate that. A downshift sound. Wow, that's quite a crunch coming from the transmission. I think if I were actually piloting the car, I would be concerned. That doesn't sound healthy, but just the same, well done, Race Sim Studio. Car sounds great. All right, so 5 more cars to go. Keep it rolling. All right, and now we are on to the Lux. So this is the Lexus. Big old V8 up front of this car. And we're still not quite cracked into my favorite cars in this pack, but I'm interested to see where they took this Lux. This one, like the Bayer, just kind of felt clunky on the road. I like the lighter, more nimble GT3s, but not to say I hate the Lux. When I did my unofficial guide to these cars, I actually came to appreciate the Lux a little bit more, having been, not forced, but having to sort of take the time to, you know, learn the car a bit and learn more about it, and take the time to do several laps in it. Again, I kind of gain more of an appreciation for it. It's probably never going to be my favorite, and just in the first few turns here at Fuji, I would say that, yeah, that is not changing at the moment. It's an interesting car. I just, yeah, it feels kind of, I don't know, and I guess the physics updates were more just sort of balance of performance, so I don't think anything that Race Sim Studio has changed in this car will really, you know, sway my opinion about it too significantly. However, it just kind of feels, I wouldn't say out of place, but just less inspired, perhaps. Excuse me, I was spitting as I was talking there. It just kind of feels less inspired, perhaps, to drive than does the rest of the pack, especially the Lanzos. About to be overtaken in a straight line by the BMW. This is embarrassing. At least lend me a slipstream, sir, if you're going to embarrass me in my own video. And that clunking downshift sound, very present here in the Lux, as we heard in the car in front of us when we drove it last time out. But, yeah, those V8, or the V8 sound, rather, here in this Lux, perhaps a little more tame. Got a bit more of a mid-tone to it. Whoa! Then did the outgoing version. I think the bass has been reduced slightly. This is the car, I don't know if you remember this, but it got released the same time as United Racing Design's Recus. It was very unfortunate timing. We have seen this in the past where there's two versions of the same car released by two major teams, or even, you know, sometimes there's a sort of de facto mod version of a car, and then and then Kunos, or whoever the respective developer is, releases the car officially. And yeah, so you're left in this awkward spot where some mod team has put a ton of time into a car only for it to be overshadowed by a new version of the car. And that's what happened with this Recus, if you'll remember, or with this Lux and the Recus when it was released. I guess that was last year. And personally, I prefer this Lux over the Recus, but yeah, I only bring that up to just talk a little bit about the sounds, because this sounds more like the Recus than the outgoing version of the Lux, in my opinion. But yeah, so here we are. So last lap here. And again, I don't think anything has really changed in terms of my opinion. Nice that they've sort of balanced it out. It's evident that I'm just not good at Fuji, because that BMW is pulling away from me here. Whereas at Imola, for example, I was able to pull away from the other cars. So I think the problem lies between the wheel and the seat. Yeah, and this is like, you know, perhaps my least favorite of the GTMs in this drive. I think the Bayer, or the Bayro, has pulled ahead of this car for me in terms of favorite. This one just kind of feels a little bit uninspired to drive, but let me know in the comments what you think about the car. But it's still, it's like, I've made this analogy before with Race Sim Studio. It's like picking your favorite and least favorite flavors of ice cream. Whatever your least favorite is, if somebody came up to you and said, hey, want to have some of this plain vanilla ice cream? Of course, it's going to be delicious. And that's the same way I feel about Race Sim Studio. Their worst effort is, or not their worst effort, but perhaps your least favorite car is still going to be phenomenal and better than 90% of the mods we see in Assetto Corsa. And that's kind of how I feel about this Lux. That's where I'm landing, is that it's not my favorite, but still a phenomenal recreation of this car. Alright, 4 more to go. So, here we are on board the Akuro. This, of course, based on the Honda NSX Evo2. And we're here at Suzuka. And this is a car that I came to love through my unofficial GTM owner's guide. When I started driving this, I realized the genius of it. I never was a fan of this car in Assetto Corsa Competizione, but it just clicks with this car. This car is phenomenal, and I think even if you're not a fan of Hondas or Acuras, whatever you want to call it, GT3 outing in ACC, give this car a try. You might very well be surprised. So nimble, and just gives incredible confidence when cornering. Feels so alive. There, so much for cornering confidence. It's all gone. But yeah, it just feels so good, and feels so nimble, and the suspension modeling is just incredible. It just feels so alive, and as you can tell by the smile on my face, we're now sort of into the sharper end of the stick here, getting into some of my favorite cars included in this pack, and it's difficult to rank them from here on out, frankly. But this Akuro definitely among my favorites. It is so good. The throttle response, fantastic. And thankfully, with the sort of BOP balancing of this pack, this didn't get nerfed. It doesn't feel like it's, you know, unworthy anymore. It doesn't feel like it's been toned down too much. Still feels very alive. Pulled a little too much speed out of the car there. In 130R, whoa, and then not quite enough heading into the final chicane. I guess I can do away with the tire app at this point. I think you hopefully get the idea here. One lap is getting you pretty close to tires up to temp, so that's good. I'm sure there is more refinement and more grip to be had as the tires continue to warm. In consideration to grip, or excuse me, in consideration to wear, but yeah, it just seems like they get up to temp a little bit earlier now. At least that's what I'm seeing. It seems to be pretty stable at 25, 26 all around. The S section here, of course, providing lots of opportunity to scrub those tires across the road surface and get them up to temp. Let's see if I can actually keep it on the road this time. I haven't driven here at Suzuka in a very long time. Forgive the bad driving. Actually, forgive the bad driving throughout this video. I'm out of touch with these GTMs. It's been a while. I drive the Mercer mercilessly. Continually. I love the Mercer, and we'll probably end the video with that one, but yeah. For now, my thoughts on the Akuro have not changed. It is an absolute monster of a car, and yeah, it just feels so phenomenal, and it falls into like the base Lanzo V10, like the Mercer. It's you know, so spry and just feels so alive. And to me, it's hard to drive this car and not think this is the best GT3 experience in sim racing, bar none. I truly stand behind that, and I know iRacing, obviously the online experience is better, I get that. But I just think for pure driving experience, I don't think you can beat these GTM cars. I really don't. I just think they're phenomenal overall. And even the sort of less popular or less enjoyable outings are still just an absolute blast. I never drive these cars and am bored with them, and that's hard to do, because I mean, GT3, I mean, they can feel very stable, they can feel very predictable, they can feel very point and shoot. You don't get that sense with these GTM cars. You get more of a sense that you know, the car is alive underneath you, and just feels good wherever you take it. And you know what? It's a race car. It's not meant to be boring. It's meant to be loud. It's meant to be unpredictable. And Racing Studio does such a good job with these cars that I think that sense really comes through, or that sentiment. Alright, so a little bit more to go here. By the way, I don't love the V6 sounds of the Akuro. I don't think it's anything to do with Racing Studio. I think it's just the car, but just the same. Here's a little snippet. So yeah, look at my tires. Lovely and green. Grippy is this Honda. And we're catching up with the Lanzo. Finally, some traffic in this video. I've effectively been running on my own for the first 3 cars, and now, right at the end of my Akuro run, I catch up to a Lanzo V10. But yeah, so we're past halfway now, and just 3 more cars to go. And yeah, I think I'll do them roughly in the order of my favorite to least favorite. Excuse me, least favorite to favorite. So now we are into the Audi. This is quite a car. Very much in common with the Lanzo Evo2, so not a huge difference between the two cars, frankly. Yeah, the layout, the engine, it's all in common here. Not necessarily a bad thing, of course. Who's going to complain about a screaming V10 engine? But just the same, not going to be a huge difference in the driving experience. But this is the newest car to be added to the pack, if I'm not mistaken. I think it launched with the Akuro. Whoa. Whoa. I don't know how I held on to that, but I did. So need that heat in the tires here to get us going here at Sonoma. And I am having no luck thus far. Forgetting all about Sonoma's layout. But we are going to get it going here eventually. But yeah, thoughts on the Audi? It's fantastic. These cars just cannot miss, and particularly with cars like this, you realize just how good it is. I mean, those sounds and just the way the car moves. It does feel slightly heavier, perhaps, than the outgoing version. Interestingly, maybe the performance was too high, but if memory serves with this Audi, or the Aero, yeah, it just feels slightly heavier now. It's also partially due to the fact that I'm coming off the Akuro, which is very light and very springy, and yeah, just kind of moves in a very unpredictable manner, whereas this Aero, just very stable on its feet. Not Bayer levels of predictability, but yeah, very predictable compared to the Akuro. And starting to feel that grip settling in here in this Aero. And yeah, I could just hardly love this car more. It is so good. I need to take this to a course I know better, so I can actually get some momentum going here and enjoy it properly. But yeah, undoubtedly, this is a monster of a car. And again, further solidifying that these are just the best GT3s you can drive. Let's have a quick listen to that engine. Yeah, come on, man. It's so good. The team at RSS Studio just always delivers, and it just makes you giddy when you enjoy cars like this. It inspires, like, I don't know, these are GT3s, we're supposed to be saturated with them, and it's supposed to be, you know, a boring concept to drive GT3s in sim racing because we have them everywhere, and all we're left with is nitpicking about details. But then you get this pack, it is just, it's enjoyment. It's, you know, the thrill of racing. And yeah, so can't give RSS Studio enough praise on this for the work they do with these cars, because they are phenomenal, truly. And just in time for me to learn a bit more about Sonoma, or a refresher course anyway on Sonoma. Gonna wrap this up at the end of this lap, and then we've got just 2 more cars to go in this revised GTM Phase 1 pack. By the way, what do you think Phase 1 means? Could we see the 720? Could we see a Porsche even? Who knows what RSS Studio has underway, what they're working on behind the scenes. let's go on to the next car, the final two. All right, so on board now with the Lanzo Evo2 here at Road Atlanta. And had a couple of laps here already that ended in a very dramatic fashion, shall we say. And yeah, just talking a little bit about this Lanzo Evo2. I believe this is the, you can see the skid marks there and sort of predict how my last outing went, my last take rather. But yeah, the Lanzo Evo2, it's just a little bit more of everything compared to the Aero. I like to say it's 5% more in every facet. So a little bit more engine scream in terms of its sound. It's that little bit more liveliness through the corner. Perhaps a little bit more spring coming out of the corner. So it's just a little bit more of everything. So if you find the Aero a little bit subdued for your liking, this may be it. Or if you find this one too lively, go to the Aero and give that a try. It's fundamentally the same car. But again, I would say this just has a little bit more life in it. And yeah, it's just that little bit more enjoyable for me to drive. But I don't think you're going wrong with either car. So we're into the top two. And this is, I would say, Race Sim Studios' most technical GT3 car, most technically proficient GT3 car. It just seems to check every box. The reason I put the Mercer at 1 is it's just that little bit more point and shoot friendly to me. This, I would say, the sounds are more refined, and you know, the bodywork, there's a bit of refined bodywork on this, by the way. The front bonnet, I believe, has been worked on for the new spec of air intake, if I'm not mistaken. But whatever the case, yeah, I would say this is their most technically spot-on car, but just lacks a little bit in the point-and-shoot enjoyment of the Mercer that I get out of it. But just a phenomenal car. In the top 2 best GT3 cars I think you could drive in sim racing, period. And yeah, just an overall beast, a monster of a car. Alright, so those front tires not coming up to temp here. I chose to leave the temp gauge in for consistency in the video, but as you can see, those fronts quite heating up. So obviously need to do some setup work, try and get that tuned in a little bit. But even with a base setup, these cars feel phenomenal. They feel lively in many cases, but also comparatively planted. I don't think you're going to struggle with this at all. It's not like iRacing where you go, or it used to be this way. I haven't done iRacing in a long time. Perhaps I'm incorrect about this, but it used to be you go slightly on the limits of the grip and end up paying the price. This one, you can go beyond the limits of grip and just kind of, you know, if you got decent reaction time, you can correct for it. I was never able to in iRacing, but that could come down to the driver. Who knows? All right, so a little snippet of, or I keep saying snippet, a little sample of sound here, and then once crossing the finish line, we will go on to my favorite car. By the way, it's not just my favorite GTM car, it's not just my favorite GT3 car in all of sim racing. It is also in my top 2 overall cars in sim racing. Only the Lanzo V10, also by Race Sim Studio, comes in higher for me in terms of enjoyment, ranking my just favorite car, period, not just GT3 in sim racing. Yeah, it goes Lanzo V12, and then the Mercer, and then the Peugeot by VRC. All right, let's go on to the final car. Okay, so sadly I've got to wrap the video up, but we're here at one of my favorite tracks in my favorite GT3 car of all time. This is the Mercer, and right away I can tell you these sounds are different. Don't know if it'll be immediately perceptible to everyone, but have a listen. So yeah, it feels to me a little bit like the engine note that rumbling V8 has been turned down in the mix. There's a bit more mid presence here, which is fine. I don't care. I wasn't immediately tied to the sound of the Mercer. It's how it drives that I was tied to, and that has not changed. That is one thing they have not changed, is just the sheer thrill of driving this car. It behaves so beautifully on the limit, and the way it bounces around these corners, these high-speed corners. I mean, tell me I'm wrong in the comments. Tell me what GT3 car you have driven that feels this good. Again, I'm not claiming this is the only standard in sim racing for GT3. I understand iRacing has a better online mode. I understand Assetto Corsa Competizione has more realism because they have access to the actual cars and laser scan tracks and all that. But just in terms of pure driving enjoyment, am I just out to lunch on this? Like, I think this Mercer is just a force. It is so good. It behaves so beautifully and just reacts to what I am giving it so well that I just have to place this as my top GT3 car of all time. And yeah, nothing in this most recent version changes that. It's just phenomenal. But here we are at Mugello, so done lap 1 of 3. You can see a little bit more tire wear here. I guess I was a bit hard on those tires on the opening lap. Yeah, and still no traffic to be found. I am unfortunately ahead of everyone else, but you can see there, like, I just took that corner too wide, and I was getting understeer, but it's not this cruel understeer that just shoots you into the grass automatically where you can't correct from. The car just responds so naturally, and you know, you're able to make those corrections. And if I go into oversteer here, yeah, it's a bit difficult because I got traction control turned up too high. But if I were to go into oversteer, it's these minute corrections, and when you get into really pushing this car, you then, you know, can make these adjustments on the fly, ABS traction control, and adjust your driving style and kind, and it just seems to respond so naturally that I just, there's a little bit of oversteer. I just have to place this at the top. I don't think this can be beat. It's just a brilliant, brilliant car. And those tires for the final time, I'm checking tires, and 26, 26, 26, 25. Gotta be happy with that. That front right just doesn't want to get warm on these clockwise circuits. We're not all the way warm. It's a little bit warm. Could be warmer. But that's fine. Easily corrected in setup. Alright, so we'll go for one final lap in this Mercer. The sound, by the way, not a huge change, but just the same. I think I prefer the outgoing. I was that way when I was talking about the GT Legends pack from Racing Studio last week. There's one or two cars where I favored the outgoing version. I would say I'm kind of the same here with the Mercer, so I might go back and find the old download files and see if I can replace these sounds, because I think I do like them, and I'm so sensitive to this car, and you know, I'm so used to driving it that I don't know, maybe these sounds would grow on me, but I think I prefer the outgoing, truthfully. So I'll go digging through the vault and see if I can find those files. Like that. That is great. The car bounces in such a natural way and just challenges you to catch it, challenges you to understand how it's going to respond to those bounces, and it's just the most rewarding GT3 experience you can have. It's not boring, it's not predictable, but just the same. It's not outrageous, it's not over the top. You're not fighting for your life with this car. You're having an interaction with it. It's a video game at the end of the day, but this is, in my mind, what GT3 cars should feel like. And that sentiment extends beyond just this Mercer. Race Sim Studio, congratulations on another successful update to these GTM cars. And if you at home are watching this video and kind of on the fence, if you at all like GT3 cars, I strongly recommend that you give these GTM cars a try, because I think you'll love them. Huge fun. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.